Tutorial number 3, comma rules for different sentence types. This tutorial will cover a simple sentence made more complex with subordinating conjunctions. A simple sentence made more complex. The following are subordinating conjunctions: after, although, as if, as much as, because, before, even if, in order that, in case, though, until, when, who, where, whereas, and so on. We use subordinating conjunctions to create more complex sentences with one of the following two main patterns: main clause or sentence plus subordinate clause, or subordinate clause, comma, plus main clause. Note the comma after the subordinate clause, which functions as an introductory phrase, often as an adverbial in that sentence. Example: he gave her feedback on her essay because she needed help. That's main clause plus subordinate clause. You could also put the subordinate clause first. Because she needed help, comma, he gave her feedback on her essay. Example number 2, I gave him my support even though she criticized him. Or you could move the subordinate clause to the beginning with a comma. Even though she criticized him, I gave him my support. Exception to the rule of subordinating conjunctions. Number 1. If the main clause or independent clause contains a negative verb, for example, not plus the verb, we add a comma before the subordinating conjunction because to avoid confusion. Here's a confusing example. She did not let him leave because she still needed his help. It means she did not let him leave because he had not helped her yet. It is confusing because it could also mean she did not let him leave because she still needed help. She had another reason for making him stay. Note the confusion. Confusion solved, add a comma. She did not let him leave, comma, because she still needed help. So here you have the main clause plus the subordinate clause, but because it's a negative verb, we add the comma there in this case. Exception number 2. If your subordinating conjunction and its clause is the relative pronoun who, whose, which, or where, punctuation depends on whether the noun before it is general, which makes the subordinating clause essential information. For example, the teacher helped the student who was sitting in the back of the classroom. The student is too general. We need more information about which student. Therefore, no comma between the noun, student, and the subordinating conjunction who. However, if the noun before the relative pronoun is specific, the subordinating clause becomes somewhat non-essential information, and a comma is correct. For example, the teacher helped Karen, comma, who was clearly struggling. Karen is very specific, so the rest of that is really non-essential information. Final exception to the comma rules was sentences made more complex with subordinating conjunctions. Comma with contrast. If your subordinating conjunction adds contrast to a sentence, you should add a comma before the subordinating conjunction. So in other words, main clause, comma, plus subordinate clause. Examples of such conjunctions are whereas or while, when it means whereas, not an adverb of time, although, and though. For example, the teacher helped Karen while or whereas John was fine on his own. Number 2, the teacher helped Karen, comma, although or though it was John who really needed help. Note the contrast in these two sentences. This is the end of the tutorial for comma rules in simple sentences made more complex with subordinating conjunctions. Next time we'll take a look at a sentence made more complex with a participial phrase.